welcome to The Edge. I have Senator Mike Bennett from Bradenton.
Thank you.
And you're District 21.
District 21, Sarasota, Manatee, DeSoto, Charlotte, and Lee County.
And you term limit out?
I'm done.
You're
I'm done.
This year?
No, I've got 2 years. I've got this year plus next year to go.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Mike, do you want to tell a little about yourself, when you got elected and your family and those kinds of things?
Yeah, it's interesting. Graduated from Sarasota High School in 1962, a long time ago. Left, and to be honest with you, I wasn't nuts about coming back to Florida. In '85, came back to Florida. My parents got sick, but came back, got involved in the business community quite a bit. And then in about '95 or something like that, I was really getting upset on how things were getting done in Tallahassee and felt that I could do a better job. And took me about 3 years to talk my wife into letting me do it. And then in '98, I got elected to the House. And then 2000, I got elected to the Senate. And it's just been an enjoyable process.
Was it 2000 or 2002?
2002, excuse me, yeah.
I think I read that. We're going to be discussing a number of things, and basically, I guess, the ballot and the issues of 4, 5, and 6, but
Sure.
we'll only talk about 4 and 5 because the legislative redistricting thing is the same for the congressional as it is for the legislative. But I'll just read these for the audience who hasn't heard them or read them or whatever, and some people I'm sure haven't, and it'll kind of help me a little bit too with you. Number 4, referendum required for adoption and amendment local government comprehensive land use plans establishes that before a local government may adopt a new comprehensive land use plan or amend a comprehensive land use plan, the proposed plan or amendment shall be subject to vote of the electors of the local government by referendum following preparation by the local planning agency, consideration by the governing body, and notice to providers and definitions. I'm not sure how this is worded peculiar.
Most of the ballot initiatives are listed kind of peculiar.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about 4. You see the signs, the thumbs down and so forth, and just, I won't comment until I've heard your comment, but essentially I've heard that it's a complicating element.
Well, it's a complicating element of this. We have a representative form of government. We do not have a pure democracy. I believe that the people in the city of Sarasota, the people in Sarasota County, Manatee County, whatever it is, they have the ability to elect elected officials. And those elected officials, they kind of lay out a growth management plan. And that's basically what's called a comprehensive plan. I don't believe that most people in the county truly want to have on their ballot 50 or 60 items that they've got to decide and try to sort out of what are they going to do, because the ballot is confusing enough without trying to understand some of the growth management stuff.
So what you're saying is each and every item that's going to be a problem of monies, then that's going to have to go on the ballot.
It's not even money. It could be a very, very simple rezone, okay? If the comprehensive plan, for example, calls for this piece of property out here on Fruitville to have 1 unit per acre, and you wanted to build another apartment out there.
Variance.
Okay? You would have to get a comprehensive plan, and the people on Longboat Key and the people of Parrish, the people of Venice, they would have to vote on that. Well, I got to be honest with you, I don't think that they want to vote on whether you can have a second unit on your property.
Which could have been given.
It could have been given, okay?
Which is how it's done now.
And that's how it's done now. The other problem that you run into is, let's say that we have to build a new waste management facility, okay? I can assure you the vote is going to be as far away from me as I can, because I don't want it in my backyard. And so you're going to have that problem. You're going to have a problem even locating a fire station, for example, because if they've got to change the comprehensive plan to do that, and often cases they would, then every citizen in the county and the electorate would have to vote on whether that's going to be done. We elect people to do that, and we should trust them to do that. Now, there's the anti-growth people will say, well, it hasn't worked in the past, okay, that we've had this explosion of growth. Well, let's talk about that explosion of growth. They always talk about the negative side of growth. I always look at the positive side. Because of growth, your kids can come back to Sarasota, Manatee County and find a job. Because of growth, they've got 3 universities they can choose from. They've got a major hospital, which is considered one of the finest in the nation, Sarasota Memorial Hospital. We've got a medical college. We've got a ballet. We've got an opera. We've got a theater. We've got a symphony. Those things are not happening in Bismarck, North Dakota, to be honest with you. People are here because of...
But hasn't that been because of the economic circumstances?
No, it's because of the growth.
Or the lack of growth?
Right now, the lack of growth, so people are not coming to Florida, okay? And that is eroding our tax bases, and less people that come. Growth can be a good thing if it's managed well, and I'll be honest with you, I think Sarasota County does a good job of managing their growth. I think Manatee County does a good job of managing their growth. Have we had developers who have converted land? Absolutely, okay? I don't see a problem with that, but I think we should trust our elected officials, and if those elected officials aren't doing it the way that you want, throw them out. Unelect them. Okay? So that can happen.
So the Democratic Republic of the United States and so forth.
You look at a major corporation going to relocate to, say, Sarasota. Okay. Well, I'll give you a real life example. We're trying to relocate Jackson Lab down into Collier and Lee County right now. If they could not be sure that they were going to build that facility because there has to be a comp plan, do you really think that they would take the gamble on trying to move a company down here and relocate? It will stifle jobs, it'll stifle employment, it'll stifle economic development. People say, we got all the houses we need. Yeah, but we don't have enough people to fill them, so I'd like to have a little bit more growth.
We've got a glut right now, about an 18-month glut.
But on the same token, if we can create more jobs and get the economy going, I mean, we've got, what, 10% unemployment at least, and then in the construction industry, maybe 15 or 18, maybe even a little higher than that. We need those jobs. Our economy's hurting. Our citizens are hurting. Look what's happening. The tax base is eroding. You know, we can have smart growth, and I think we have. I don't think anybody would question Lakewood Ranch is an unbelievably wonderful community.
Well, it's been argued that it's in trouble right now.
I don't think it's in trouble. I don't know anybody who's ever told me it's in trouble. This is the first I've ever heard that it's in trouble. Lakewood Ranch is, in fact, they don't even, it's interesting
Some
about
of the businesses have moved out, and so.
Well, that's not necessarily because of Lakewood Ranch. I think that's because of the economy in general. I happen to own a couple of restaurants, and believe me, our numbers are way, way down. So I don't necessarily think that has to do with Amendment 4.
That's not an indicator.
And if you wanted to get a comp plan change, the only people who would be able to do it are the Lakewood Ranches, because they are the only ones who would be able to afford a campaign to do a campaign across the county.
So you're saying the community like Lakewood Ranch would have the funding to do a comp plan,
but if you wanted to build that second house out on your 5 acres, you wouldn't be able to run a political campaign and advertising campaign to get the people out in Longboat Key to vote for it.
So essentially you're saying that this 4 is such a complicator that
it will kill our economy in the state of Florida, and it's already dead. I mean, we need the jobs, and I think that if, you know, your listeners would tell you out there, everybody out there has felt the impact of this particular recession. I don't think that we need to complicate it any further.
Well, let's talk about 5 then. Move to that and this redistricting issue. And 5 says standards for legislation for the legislature to follow legislative redistricting. Legislative districts or districting plans may not be drawn in favor or disfavor of an incumbent or political party. Districts shall not be drawn to deny racial or language minorities the equal opportunity to participate in the political process and elect representatives of their choice. Districts must be contiguous unless otherwise required. Districts must be compact, as equal in population as feasible, and where feasible must make use of existing city, county, and geographic boundaries. Now, I'm going to read a little bit about an editorial, and then you can come back and knock this thing. This is in behalf of it. This was when this editorial came from the Bradenton Herald, your home area there. And it basically says, let's see, should a petition drive to place 2 constitutional amendments, that's the legislative and the congressional, that's the state and
5 and 6.
5 and 6, both, on the ballot succeed over the next 7 months, because it goes back in time, Florida voters could change the way political districts are drawn. Citizens could ensure greater fairness in the process. Egregious gerrymandering would be banned. Safe seats could be competitive. Then we move on. Now this is a, well, I'll start this way. The political party in power holds sway. In effect, incumbent politicians, whether Democrat or Republican, can pick their voters, not the other way around. With Republicans in control of both House and Senate, our own state senator, Mike Bennett, expects to be selected to sit on the legislative committee that will draw up those political boundaries in 2011. The GOP also determined redistricting the last time around. So, don't expect the other party to have much of a voice. As required in the U.S. Constitution, this exercise occurs every 10 years once new census figures are totaled. A bipartisan organization really go into that group that pushed this and got it on the ballot. They challenged, they needed 676,000 petition signatures and need a 60% margin of victory in this election on 5 and 6. The proposed amendments would ban boundaries that favor any party or incumbent or that deny equal opportunity for language or racial minorities. District lines would have to encompass existing geographic and political boundaries when achievable. The legislature would still have to draw up the districts just under new rules. Plus, boundaries could be challenged in today's court, and would be probably. Public scrutiny would ensure the fairness, and so on. And here's a couple of examples. District 11, with Kathy Castor up there, it ropes in the downtowns of 4 cities, Tampa, St. Pete, Bradenton, Palmetto, and leaps across Tampa Bay twice to accomplish that. Do Tampa issues mirror those in Bradenton? Hardly. Darrell Roussan, District 55, straddles Pinellas, Hillsborough counties, and then funnels down through Manatee County into Sarasota, netting many minority neighborhoods. Both of these districts isolate a large number of Democratic voters and into a single political entities, watering down the party's power in neighboring districts, so Republicans have a favorable margin. Rousseau even switched from being a Republican to a Democrat in the last election to win office. With the vast majority of congressional District 11 voters residing on the other side of Tampa Bay, Castor is a rare presence in the Bradenton area. Another good reason for districts to be more compact. Those are essentially that's the position, somewhat different than what I'm guessing you're coming from.
Well, I think that if they really understood the process and what has happened in history, they would agree with me. We wanted minority representation, and in 1990, the Republicans drew the seats. The Supreme Court said, that's not good enough. We want you to go back and look at the Voting Rights Act. So in 1990, under Republican control, we, for the first time, got African American seats. We ended up with 3 of them in the congressional thing. We'd never had a Hispanic. We had just elected our first Hispanic to the Florida Senate. This all under Republican control. And so they drew the seats. The actual court is the one who gerrymandered those seats. And the court, the Supreme Court of the state of Florida said, look, you don't have enough African Americans representation. So we're going to take Corrine Brown's and we're going to make sure that she has a majority seat. In order to get her a majority seat, in other words, that there would be enough African Americans in that seat that an African American would stand a chance to get elected, they had to cover something like 7 counties, and they stretched it all the way from Jacksonville all the way down to Orlando. This is what the courts did. The Republican Party didn't do it, the courts did it.
So you're saying that this is wrong, this article suggesting that...
Absolutely, the article's wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because if we take, and you take Darrell Roussan's district that you spoke about, Darrell Roussan's district was drawn so you could have some minority representation. Mm-hmm. If you draw just Manatee County in and of it by itself, the population of the minority district is so small that they may not have an African American representation. There are only 3 African American seats in the state of Florida that I know of where the majority of the seat would be big enough with the minority population that they would have representation. So when this says you can't favor or disfavor, if we move that line, say north of the river, mm-hmm. wouldn't that disfavor Darrell Roussan because we would take the African American population away from him? If you leave it down here, maybe we would be disfavoring, say, Keith Fitzgerald because we would be giving him